Welcome everyone to our Coaches Connect. This is our second Coaches Connect. These are a combination of Q&A, hot seat coaching by master coaches, expert talks, deep dives, and opportunities to practice and apply concepts that you're learning about in our courses and certifications. So today I wanted to chat a little bit about a topic that is close to our hearts these days. Folks at PN anyway. I'm going to speak for myself. So I wanted to talk a little bit about using AI, specifically generative AI, when it comes to generating images in your work, in your fun, in your life. And also perhaps have, like in the second half of our call, just open up the floor for any questions you might have about AI tools, anything we talk about today, but just maybe anything else that comes up. We've also made a pretty big announcement earlier this week about releasing a new AI course for health and wellness professionals. So if there are questions about that, anything that I do know and I'm able to answer, I will try. So let's jump in. What I wanted to actually start with is just show you this little image. Let me see if I can share my screen, share the right screen. There's always that terrifying feeling when you share a screen with a bunch of people. You're like, oh God, what am I sharing right now? What are you guys seeing? What are you seeing? Tell me. Can somebody tell me in the chat, what are you seeing? Please tell me you're seeing a cat. Oh, good. Okay. It is I am sharing correct screen. I wanted to share this little image with you. I shared this on my socials earlier this week as my public service announcement, because we're in the middle to end of September. And every fall I kick off my group coaching program for folks that struggle with winter. And this was my little reminder, take vitamin D, but it's cute, right? It's cute. I probably could have created something like that somehow. What is really cool about this image is that it took me 3 seconds to create. From it not existing to it existing, 3 seconds. And I've been kind of trying to think, to conceptualize in my head, what would be the previous alternative? How would I go about this? How would I go about generating an image, creating an image like this a year ago, 2 years ago, when I didn't have any generative text to image AI options? So as Jer was saying in the comments, and feel free to pop in the chat or even raise your hand here just to contribute. The simplest option, I could have just not used an image. I could have just taken the text that I had, right, as a caption, and I could have shared that without an image, on Facebook, or I could have used it as a text only, maybe a screenshot of my own little notes. People do that, from their iPhone notes section onto Instagram as just a text only image. Could have done that, knowing fully well that people like images and posts with images tend to get higher engagement. But just to save time, I could have done that. And I could have compromised the engagement, the reach on the post. I could have also gone on Google. I mean, don't tell anyone, right? Not supposed to use images on Google because we don't know where it comes from. But I could have gone on Google and I've searched for image of a cat, cartoon cat holding a sign, I think. Pexels, yes, that's another source. I got to check that out, Lisa. Thank you. And I'm pretty sure the cat would not have been holding a sign that says take your vitamin D, at which point I would have needed to take that image into something like Canva or Photoshop and maybe added text on top of it. Or I could have just found a photo of a cat on Unsplash. But do you hear the process? I mean, you might be engaging in this process on a daily basis right now for some of the images that you're using for your own content. Do you hear how all of that is time? When it comes to me specifically, what would have probably happened is that I would have tried to do all those things. Then I would have gotten frustrated halfway through, 20 minutes in, when I'm still trying to adjust text on a cat. I would have probably given up. And then I would have gotten back to option 1 and just posted the damn thing with just the text. So this to me was such a great and tangible example of how like an AI tool well used could very much save time that I wanted to share that with you today. There is another piece of of information that is a little wow if you have played with text to image AI tools like Midjourney. Midjourney is like the big one. The Midjourney is the one we've mentioned. It's been mentioned and demonstrated in our first webinar from the AI webinars. This is like the big kahuna of the generative imagery. Midjourney is amazing. It's beautiful. It creates mind-blowing images. It sucks when it comes to text. Like it doesn't know what to do with letters, right? Like letters are just it's salad. It's just letter salad is what you get. So I've been playing with coming up with a logo for this call. Coaches Connect, right? Like it is such a cool name. The community has helped us come up with a name. I think somebody like actually nominated this exact name. It would be really cool for us to have a logo. So I've tried creating that logo in Midjourney. I got some very impressive looking images with a bunch of letter salad. Look like that. Let me see. Can I click here? I mean, let's ignore the weird dude. I'm not sure what happened there. But I don't hate the big circle with like the fire and the connecting neurons. Like I don't hate it. I mean, we could do something with that. Text, I don't know what that says. Now, again, we could have done the in between because I think that a way to go here, I could have taken this image and back to Canva I go, and I could have adjusted the letters, but Midjourney just doesn't do letters or text very well yet. When it comes to AI, it all seems yet. Everything is yet, and the timeline is like months or weeks in some cases. So you notice from that perspective, my little cat with a sign that says take vitamin D is that much more impressive. And I wanted to show you some of my little play with coming up with Coaches Connect logo. This is zero editing. This was 3 seconds. Another little option. Not super convinced about the connect spelling there at the end. And I will point out, like you see the little glitches, right? Like there will be tiny glitches here and there that like we will need to adjust. So I might still need to take this guy into Canva to do I don't know if I would use Canva. I might be able to do that in like a very simple editing tool to just shade out the shape of some letters. That's cute. I mean, logos, puzzle pieces coming together, right? There's a little of like visual hallucinations there on the side as well. Human weighted blanket. We could try that as a prompt, Jer. I'm not sure if I'm excited or worried about what we would get as a result. Here's another one. It's also cute. So you notice I've just showed you a couple of very, very different logos with letters with text already on them. And they're ready to roll. Like I could crop this, use this in a Facebook cover, like literally next week. And the tool that I used to do that, and let me know if you're still going to share this. You still see my screen? So this is actually one of the newer AI text to image tools that you can probably play with, depending on your location. So if you are in Singapore and this doesn't let you through, don't come at me, I'm sorry. But for most people in North America, you should be able to play with Ideogram. So it's Ideogram.ai. And it's a startup that's actually based in Toronto, as I found out. And I think they literally launched like 3 weeks ago. And one of their biggest like claim to fames, the things to fix, was very much text and lettering. So you might have seen last week I used like a little puppy that said, "Are you coming to today's webinar?" And it was also generated in Ideogram. So this right now is probably like would be my tool of choice for very easy Instagram friendly, social media friendly, quick little graphics. Like if you wanted to design a t-shirt or a sticker or simply a colorful square image that says wisdom, right? Or whatever piece of brilliance you want it to share. Now you will find, and as you play with it, you'll notice that you'll still get some hallucinations. And like my estimate with accuracy of text right now is probably like 40 to 60%. I get what I want. So I can show you because you're still seeing my screen. Let me see if I can scroll down here and show you some of the results here. So this guy here was a version. See a little bit of a glitchy text there? Glitchy connect. Oh, not really what I had in mind. And Coquets Connect. Not sure what that is. But again, you notice that we could kind of go with the logo. If we really, really love the logo, I could try and remix this one and just keep poking it until I got the text right. So this is not going to be perfect by any means. No AI tool will be right now yet with text, but here, like just from all the tools that I've seen so far, when it comes to text and generating text, we kind of went from 0 success rate to solid 40 to 60% rate. I've shared earlier, this was me trying to design a t-shirt for myself. If anyone wants to grab that and make some t-shirts, be my guest. Not that one. I'm not sure what's up top there, but I do dig the font. So that was the little tool I wanted to show you today because it was new, it was fun, and also unlike Midjourney, this is incredibly easy to use. Very, very very user-friendly interface. It's also a free tool right now. So you will find if you use it, the way that they're capping user capacity is by limiting the number of image generations that you will have, like in a minute or 2 minutes. So once we generate something, I think once you generate 2 or 3 images in a row, it starts giving you a countdown, right? So it says like you have to wait 60 seconds until you generate the next image. You have to wait 120 seconds. So like it's going to just pause you in that sense, which I'm assuming that in a month or 3, there will simply be a paid tier for this tool without the counter. And that's what I'm probably expecting to see. So I wanted to pause there. There's like my little 17-minute spiel on this. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so I can see y'all better. Jer, what do you think? Have you played with this tool at all? I'm just going to pick on you first so we can make folks comfortable meanwhile.
No, I haven't really played a lot with AI tools just yet. I actually have a question. I was hoping during the free Q&A part we'd get to one specific thing that I want to talk about. But for image generation, I haven't used it just yet. I've seen some friends in outside of the coaching space use it to do some really cool things. And I think it's really useful if you need a lot of imagery for your posts and stuff like that. If the first thing you mentioned, kind of like, I generated this in all of like maybe 5 seconds. And to find something like really hyper specific like that, it would have taken me like a whole bunch of Google searches to refine and to keep looking for something that already exists. But a cat finding a sign to remind people to hold vitamin or to take their vitamin D is like going to be really hard to find. Whereas Googling it would have sucked. It's like, this makes a lot more sense. And I'm curious to know, like, at what point do we get to a time and space where we have a verb that represents this action? Because I do think we'll get there eventually. Like, if you want to know something, you'll Google it. If you want to create something, what's that verb?
What is the verb?
Mhm.
Does Ideogram only allow signups through Google account? Oh, that's a great question. Sito, I actually don't know just because I have a Google account. So I would have clicked on that so quickly that I would not even I would not even have noticed the alternates. But I'm assuming you're asking because you may not have a Google account. So if you learn one way or another, please let me know just so I know the answer to that question as well. And that applies to anyone here. Mm-hmm.
So,
Anything else? Like what came to mind? Go ahead.
so right now it shows only login through Google account, and I'm very concerned about Google as a privacy tool. So usually when I log in into any website, I do it through Apple ID or I create a new account. So that's kind of my only concern with this, but that's just me.
No, I get that. And I'm wondering, like, would creating a separate Google account be worthwhile for you just kind of, as a dummy AI tools and other stuff on the internet at gmail.com, like just for that reason? And I mean, folks do that with Facebook accounts similarly, just for that purpose. Oh, creating an alias, yeah.
That's brilliant. That's what I'll do.
Awesome. Anyone else? Thoughts, feelings? What do you think so far? Looking at this tool, you're like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. I hate this. I am so creeped out. Tell me how you really feel. So excited to play with it. Lisa.
I'm excited. I only just got myself comfortable using AI for like structuring my course layout and things like that. So to have it do graphics for me, that's really cool.
That is pretty cool. Yeah. I'm excited. Let me know if you end up playing with it, what you come up with. The other Lisa says, I'm excited to play with it. I have to find free images all the time for my blog posts, and this looks way more fun than having to recreate images. Looks fun to mess around with. Yeah, and I will say, like Lisa, like what I'm noticing is that my use of something like Unsplash, and if you're not familiar with Unsplash, it's a website that has a database of royalty-free images that you can just use, right? Like they're photographs taken by humans all over the world and uploaded into this database. My use of Unsplash did not go down to zero. I still use Unsplash pretty regularly because real photographs are still going to be better than AI for a number of things. Like AI can get a little bit weird for now when it comes to relationship of objects to each other, right? So if I like wanted a close-up of dew on the grass, like I probably would have pretty easily just gone to Unsplash and seen what I can find. Or if I want an image of a white fluffy cat, right? But something really specific, something cartoony, something that doesn't actually exist, or something like the example that I was using, the cat holding a sign that says a thing, then that's where I would go to AI. Coach Tony and myself, we were playing with this tool, and she said, I cannot for the life of me make Ideogram make me a sign that says introduce yourself. And I spent 20 minutes trying to get it to do that, and I could not. And after like a number of prompts and number of playing, it was the word introduce that just seemed like too complicated. It just kept confusing it. And I said, Tony, let's think outside the box. Let's say hello, right? Like let's use synonyms. I cannot give you introduce myself right now. Ask me in a couple of months, and maybe the tools will evolve by then. Lisa says I could see using something like Unsplash for inspiration too. Yeah, to get the creative juices flowing. Yeah, and I mean, Lisa, a lot of like, so the more sophisticated text to image tools can also use images as prompts. And because Unsplash are royalty-free images by definition, you could also use those images literally as prompts. That could be fun. Yeah, I like the idea of getting inspiration from something else and then using AI to make it yours. Yeah. Curious to hear if folks here have played with generating AI images using any tools. This might be a new tool to you just because it's just brand new, period. And I was very excited to share it because it was so simple to use and free and very social media graphics images friendly. But you know, like Midjourney, we've talked about for a little bit. There is, you know, Dolly, there is Stable Diffusion. There are kind of the big ones out there. So Miruna has played with Midjourney and few others. Yeah, so this particular one is new for most people. Lisa says, try briefly, got a lot of gobbledygook. Yeah. Yes, need to go deeper. And Lisa, was it with Midjourney that you got the gobbledygook?
No, it was with one of the other big ones. What were the three that you mentioned? I forgot.
Dolly is the one that is done by OpenAI, which is the same company that does ChatGPT.
No, I think there was a different one.
And there's so many of them, like Adobe has Firefly, Stable Diffusion is the other big one, and there's going to be like countless number right now. Let's see. So Maruna played. Oh my goodness, can we all click? Oh, did you see that? That's fun. Yes, Maruna, can you share the prompt that you used? Yeah, that is so cool. On the call, this is happening. We're making art on the call. What? The prompt was simply Coaches Connect logo. Yeah, that's the best part. And Marina, I actually really appreciate you sharing, because what I really like, you might have seen examples of really sophisticated prompts, like especially for folks playing with Midjourney, right? Like image of tall, young, attractive woman looking sadly into the skyline, daylight, aspect ratio 16:9, photorealistic in a style of Picasso, and it just kind of keeps going for 4 paragraphs. I actually find that it's really much better to start with very, very simple prompts just to see what you get, and then start adding. Like I find that adding is easier than subtracting. So some of the most beautiful images I've gotten, like literally from 1 to 3 word prompts, right? Like just even playing with a tool and seeing, just for inspiration, like what will it give you if you use prompt like love, right? Or wisdom, right? It actually comes up with some really beautiful photos, and it kind of gives you some ideas, sparks further ideas. You can adjust the prompt and keep going. Yeah, that's fun. So same prompt. Oh yeah, that's very cute. Colorful. Yeah, and I was really hoping we can do just that on the call today, right? Like just, it's such a simple tool that you can click and kind of play around with it as we're talking about it. Well, I mean, we're just at about half hour mark, so why don't I just open it up to kind of the wider Q&A when it comes to the tools, the AI, anything that you have tried or haven't tried, would love to know about, hear about, or just even chat through. When it comes to AI, where are you? Jira's AI curious. That's a good one. I like that. AI curious. That's fantastic. I have married AI. I have divorced everybody else, left them behind in the dust. We're moving in together, buying a house. Cecil, go ahead.
Hey. So I'm very curious and I'm very excited for AI. My partner actually works with AI stuff. But my only issue here is with the policies, right? Right now, the policies are coming up, the privacy, the copyright issues. So I'm a bit scared to use the images up until the point where I'm confident that it would not create any copyright violations. That's my concern. But other than that, like I'm very excited to use it.
Yeah, and I think that the concerns are legitimate and cannot be dismissed. I think my question to you would be, before the AI conversation was on the table, how did you go about using images?
That's a very good question because I used to use Unsplash and Pixels, I think,
Mhm.
Pixabay, and
Right.
then I read an article saying that people who were using Unsplash images, some of them got sued or something. I'm not really sure how true that was. And then I got like really, is that really going to happen? And I didn't use Unsplash after that. So what I usually do is I take my own photographs and I add that to my content. Um, but yeah, a little bit of fear based. I'm sure that most of it is unfounded, but yeah.
Well, I mean, they're not completely unfounded, right? Like that there are some very legitimate concerns, right? And I think when it comes to privacy and copyright, like absolutely, I think the biggest reason most folks are concerned with this right now is that we simply don't know. And there are just no answers to this because we're very much in limbo. This is so brand new that there are no laws around it. Um, and for some, that's like too risky. Does that make sense? Like, so and that's completely fine. One conversation I had with somebody, like they were saying like, well, how do I use ChatGPT? Like, I don't want to put in any like identifying information. And I've actually used the example. I said, think of how you use Google. Think of how many potentially embarrassing things you have put into search window in Google, because Google has been around for a while, and goodness knows, my most embarrassing Google history, like I will tell you right now, and this is going to be on the internet, is what do cats' genitals look like? And that is, years ago. Yeah, imagine the photos. That's right. Years ago, I had a very cute kitten that I got for Valentine's Day because somebody who is no longer in my life, probably for that reason, thought it was a good idea to give me a cat for Valentine's Day. But I got this little kitten as a girl. Was not a girl. We found out a few months later that it was actually a boy, and Google helped me determine that. But it took some very strange things in Google search history for me to arrive there. My point being, you probably have your own examples that I care about you too much to ask you to share, right? Like that's what I'm here for, because I have no shame. But every single person here has those Google searches. Like we have searched all the things on Google, like truly. Google knew before anyone in my life that I was pregnant. And that's probably true for a lot of women, because the very first thing that a woman does when she gets a positive pregnancy test is Google the expectancy date calculator, when is my due date based on the last missed period. So Google knew before anybody else you're pregnant. We have been uploading photos of our newborns and friends and dogs to Facebook potentially for many years, or maybe you haven't, right? And my point being is, this is not a completely new concern. Like, we have been uploading or not uploading and making those decisions about our personal information and how to share or not share it on the internet with other companies for a very long time. So to a certain extent, we actually have some experience doing that. And I think we can use a lot of that to make these decisions as well. Cecil, I don't know if that helps or not, right? Like, because it's definitely not as clear because it's a brand new technology, but I also don't think we have to invent principles here from scratch, because you have already been deciding whether or not to put your own face on the internet, for example, right? Or to share or not to share where you live, like pictures of the inside of your house, pictures of your friends, identifying information of clients, etc.
Yeah, I'm anyway going to learn it because I really like it and I feel like it's going to be very useful moving forward. These were just concerns, like,
For sure.
we all, eventually we'll get the answers to it, but right now I don't think anybody has the answer to that.
No, nobody does, right? And I think I'm remembering to the early days of my website and having a blog, right? And this would have been 10, 12, I don't know how many years ago, where I did what everybody else did at the time. If I needed an image, I Googled it and I screenshotted it and I uploaded it and I used it. And then fast forward 5, 6, 7 years, it's like, oopsie, that's probably not a good idea, because who knows where those images came from. They may or may not be copyrighted. And then we started to use things like Unsplash and our own photos, and started to become a little bit more cognizant of those issues. Now, did I go back and scrub every single blog article that I have of those images? No, absolutely not, because I don't think it would be a very good use of my time. That means that at any given day, tomorrow, I might receive an email notifying me that I'm using someone's copyrighted image on my website. That is very, very possible. Now, I'm not going to go to jail just because of that, because usually what happens is, hey, we've noticed that you're using copyrighted image in your work in this place, please take it down, which I would be happy to do. Lisa says, still working through putting the PN AI videos I've watched to use, trying to find the balance between embracing AI and feeling like it's not creative cheating. Yeah, there is definitely that like feeling where it's like, am I cheating? You know, the example I use, Lisa, with someone is like, I'm a big fan of manual transmission. I only drive cars with stick. So those of you that choose to drive automatic, I mean, are you cheating? Because it kind of feels to me over here. And I think that's a good example for one reason, because I'm perfectly aware that I could drive a car with automatic transmission that could switch gears for me. I choose not to because I happen to like shifting the gears, right? And I think when it comes to AI, the choices will be largely that. You don't need to outsource the things you enjoy. But every single person that I've talked to who can comfortably drive both stick and automatic and chooses to drive automatic, they say, I hate shifting gears. Why would I do it if a car can do it for me? Amazing, right? And that's exactly it. So if I talk to a coach who loves writing, why would they use ChatGPT to write newsletters for them? They love writing, but they might use ChatGPT to come up with headlines, titles, to edit their work, to look for typos, to look for run-on sentences. So you notice that we can kind of use it to do the things we don't enjoy, not to do the things you do. All right. And from that perspective, well, am I cheating if I'm using AI to proofread my work? No more, no less than I'm cheating when I'm using a calculator to do a calculation. Yes, I know what 7 times 9 is, but sometimes I'm just tired and I don't feel like it. And we had somebody who, Maruna, generated an image that said, introduce yourself. Yourself is misspelled though, which is why that phrase, if anyone can do that, please tag me, please message me, email me. I would love to see that. That should be a challenge. That should be homework. I mean, there's like 30 of us on this call. Like, surely we can come up with one image that says introduce yourself. And used to be the same about cars. There you go. Yeah. Seethal, I appreciate the question. I think you're not alone in wondering that. Anyone else? It's like AI, AMA. You guys, you know, the Reddit speak, the Ask Me Anything, AMA. Yeah.
Kate, I actually had one for you today in the AI field in terms of I'll let you know what the problem is that I'm experiencing, and then if there's a tool that you think might offer a solution or a partial solution. Love connecting with clients. Having the conversation with them is fantastic. While I'm having conversations with clients, I normally jot down a few key points that I use to reference if I'm sending them something or the practice that we're working on. And then I'll send that information to them. It also functions for me to keep kind of like running tabs, and then I'll review those before we sit down again. The problem with this is that splitting my attention means that I might be missing some information as I'm taking down those notes. And sometimes I understand, I'm like, oh, I actually can't write this down because there's a little bit more of a back and forth here, and I need to be more aware here. So the session will end, and then I'll maybe capture some of it, or maybe I'll wait 5 or 10 minutes, or maybe I'll wait 7 days, and it's like, oh crap, I didn't capture anything from our last session. And now I'm kind of like fishing in the blind. And normally I don't have a big enough client load that it becomes a real problem. It's like, I completely forgot who you are and what we've talked about for the last several weeks. But is there a plugin or a program that can capture this stuff and synthesize it in a way that is meaningful to coaches?
I think a little bit of this, Jarrett, is do you enjoy this or not, right? Because taking notes, like I'm a scribbler, like no AI is going to help me with this. Like this is going to be forever me and pieces of paper everywhere, and I just made peace with it. If we're willing to adjust like the way we take notes, because I think with a pen on paper, like it's a very physical activity, right? But if we're willing to adjust how we take notes, like when you're thinking of yourself taking notes, is that something that you type up?
If I'm thinking the way how I take notes, yeah, I normally type up my notes. I've never experimented with writing them out because eventually I'd have to transcribe them to written text anyway.
If there is already an act of transcription, and I think that's important, right? Because when I take notes, they're not necessarily going anywhere. But if there's already an act of transcription, I think that there are definitely tools that we can use with client's consent. So like this is the only part here is that we would need to get the client on board in terms of capturing. And the easiest way of doing that probably is just using like a digital assistant that will take transcript and notes for you, and then will summarize it. So for example, I've shared our Coaches Connect replay from last week with folks from earlier. We've uploaded on YouTube. And the summary for that call is completely AI generated.
Mhm.
I looked over it, I edited it because AI hallucinates and I want to make sure it doesn't, like, I don't know, bring up rabbit butt in the middle of a sentence, because it could. But other than that, I gave ChatGPT a YouTube link to the video,
Mhm.
and it gave me a summary of the YouTube video. Like a
So
very,
not it's a direct transcription. It just captures some key points.
that's right. Yeah. So I would play with a couple of tools there. So something like video to summary, and that's where
Mhm.
I'm thinking like ChatGPT plugins will probably be most helpful, because there are things like YouTube summaries, video summaries that are specifically meant for this. So notice in terms of like when I said like we need to get clients' consent, because you notice what that implies. We're recording it and we're
Right.
uploading it to YouTube, right? Like, so that's the piece. This call, for example, we are recording, and I've let everyone know that we are recording it. One of the easiest ways of generating this transcript, first of all, Zoom generates transcript automatically, but I also could have an AI assistant attend this call. So like Otter is the tool that we used and mentioned in the past. Otter, like the animal, OTTER.ai. And with that, you can specify the Zoom link to the event, and then you actually have an Otter attend the meeting.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll try that next time. I'll get my Otter to attend, and you will see one of the little square windows will be Kate's Otter assistant. So it's taking notes live, and then I don't necessarily need a full transcript like what you were saying. Like, I can simply generate a summary, or I can also chat with the transcript the way we can do like with a PDF. So that's something that I've showed in the last webinar, where I have all the transcripts generated, but I don't actually need to read them. I can say, did Jeremy and I talk about strength training in this call?
Mhm.
And it can say, yes, you did, here's the section, or no, you did not. Does that
And
help?
yeah, I mean, what I would want it to do ideally is like have it understand what I think is valuable in the conversation and then capture those things, which I don't know, would the plugin learn over time what I'm highlighting?
Well, I think the biggest issue here would actually be defining the problem, because I want you to really think here of AI and any tool as an assistant, right? So, and if you had a live human assistant that we hired for you, right? And your assistant, meet your assistant, Jeremy, right? Like, their name is Colin, right? And Colin is now your assistant, and he will be walking around with you and attending every single coaching call that you have and take notes for you. It will be close to impossible for you to instruct Colin to only write down what you deem as important, because Colin cannot read your mind any more
Right.
than an AI assistant cannot read your mind. So a big piece here will actually be really specifying what the problem is.
Right.
What is the problem? It's, do we want a summary of a call? Cool, we can get a summary of a call. Can we ask for any details like, did we discuss training? Did we discuss nutrition? Or what were the takeaways from this coaching call? We can get this information, but it would be close to impossible to say, give me only everything that Jeremy deems important from this call, unless you were to verbally tag that in a coaching call. Right? Because like, you could actually train yourself just to
Right.
conduct coaching calls where you say, here's what's really important, blah, blah,
Here are
blah.
the key points. And
Here are
then,
the key
yeah.
points, right? And like, you're essentially just verbally tagging your own conversation for the assistant, just like you would to the human assistant in the room, right?
Right.
You say, by the way, Colin, this is really important, write this down. Right? Like,
Gotcha.
you wouldn't
Okay.
even need to be that explicit.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I think I have some direction taken. So I've already downloaded Otter based on our last Coaches Connect call, and I just haven't played with it. This is what my explanation of like AI curious is. I have access to the tool. I just don't know the best direction to point it in. But this seems like it may make a meaningful influence on my coaching and how I interact with clients in those calls.
What I found with a whole bunch of AI tools is that it's very difficult to go in and kind of like right away get how it's helpful. You almost need to make it a task to play with it, right? Because otherwise it's like kind of like having a food processor. Like it can do so many things, but if it's like, but what do I do with it? I was like, if
Right.
my task, I now have a food processor, is this complicated machine in my kitchen that apparently can do a whole bunch of things. I keep being told, but I don't know what that means. So if that's where I leave it, my food processor is going to it's going to live in the box. Now, the way I would go about it is the same way I would go about using any AI tool. I'm going to take 30 days to experiment with this tool. I'm going to make some recipes using food processor, right? Like I'm going to play with some prompts in ChatGPT. So like right now with Midjourney, my like little mini homework for myself is that I try to generate at least 2 to 3 images every single day. It doesn't mean anything. Like it doesn't apply directly to my work in a very like direct, meaningful way, but it's a skill, it's a practice. And every day or two, I get to play, like I discover a new command, a new way of altering an image, a new word, a new prompt. And you notice we essentially use GSPA model
Right.
here
Yeah.
as well, right? Bethany says it's kind of like you need to let it get to know you, how you work, and the program it to help you. Yeah. And Jer, I think the other thing that I'm thinking of here is that's going to be a little bit more complex, but also like more automating is like look to Zapier integrations. If this, then that, right? Like, because then it can sort of like take the notes, summarize the notes, and then stick them into this Google document.
Right.
Right? Or on like a more simpler model. So a lot of the coaching calls that I do that are like follow-up calls, I tend to follow the structure of like, what went well, what didn't go well, what are we going to do differently? And if those 3 sections keep coming up in my coaching calls, you notice like that's actually a very natural verbal tag.
Yep.
Like for transcripts, for pulling out that kind of information.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure, like I know that my coaching calls have a very similar flow from call to call. There are certain sections that we're going to hit every time. I'm just wondering, it's like, oh, would it be able to summarize just those things succinctly so I can go copy, paste, send, so I can actually pay more attention?
When you say copy, paste, send, what do you mean?
So it would generate this summary somewhere, and then I would either be able to copy and paste the specific sections that I find valuable, or better yet, it would do that itself and summarize those for me, and I would just copy and paste that body of text, put it into a pro coach message, and send away.
Oh, okay, that actually helps. So you notice that you actually want to use the transcript and the summary to provide the email with a summary and the takeaways in an email.
Exactly, yeah.
We can absolutely do that because so the easiest way to do that would be to just feed the transcript to ChatGPT and to say, analyze the transcript of this coaching call, give me a summary, and write this client a follow-up email based on the takeaways that we've discussed using this style. And it will actually give you an email. So like you don't even need to copy and paste the takeaways. You can just copy and paste the email and make some edits just to make it sound more like Jeremy and less like your assistant Colin.
Got it. Cool. Hopefully I'll have some feedback for you for next week then.
Yeah, I would love that. We have a little bit of time. Any other questions that have come up? That was a great one, Jared. Thank you. I think people are just playing with Ideogram. Be honest now. My work here is done.
Hi, Kate. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Michelle.
I was just thinking about what Jeremy was asking. I think that's just so cool. I do a lot of training in person in the gym that I work at as well. How might I integrate the kinds of things you're talking about, like the Otterbot and so forth, if I get client consent, of course, to kind of, I guess, record our training session together? Would that same application kind of work there in person?
I mean, if there is sound and there's human conversation, yes. But I guess I'm wondering, can you describe the best case scenario here for me? Like if you had your like La La Land magic trick, what would that look like?
Okay, so we're going around the gym. I'm walking her through her workout. We're talking about um, maybe it's the change in the program for the next 4 weeks, and we're working through form and um, intensity levels and things like that. I'm wanting to somehow, after 30 minutes of that, be able to it's not as easy taking notes, right? When you're walking around with a person with different dumbbells and machines and so forth in a gym. So how might I capture the kinds of cues and um, things to remember for next time? Maybe if I'm not there, she's doing it by herself. Um, would there be a way to capture, quote, my notes in my actual in-person session with this client, so I can say, so next week when you're going to do this on your own, I've walked you through the programming, here's what you need to remember.
How do you do that now?
Well, it's kind of cumbersome. I'm taking a little notepad. I'm writing some notes, and I'm observing how she's performing and trying to remember now, it's seat levels, number 2. Don't forget when you do these leg extensions and whatnot, stuff like that,
Well, because the one thing I always want to be careful about is that we don't try to integrate a tool just for the sake of integrating a tool. Right.
Right.
Because then we kind of get into this weird, it's like maybe you don't, maybe AI is not what you need, right? Like, could we record the transcript of this conversation? Like, I'm imagining these complicated, like, you're now hooked up to a mic and like your client is hooked up to a mic. We have an audio transcript being generated and recorded. But you notice how that all might be a bit of an overkill, like for what you have in mind. And as I'm hearing you talk, like it could be something as simple as switching to voice notes rather than taking text, right? So like if you were using a back
So
end.
I would kind of be that AI bot, and I would be referencing my own notes and, like Jeremy said, kind of taking time to cull through and summarize my own voice notes and send her an email saying, is that what you're saying, instead of leveraging technology?
Well, no, my point being here is that you notice that the problem is not how does Michelle use AI, right? Like it doesn't matter if you use AI or not. The problem is how do we make Michelle's life easier,
Right.
right? AI or no AI.
Right.
And if AI happens to help, amazing, right? But we're also not going to bend over backwards just to like shove AI into your life if it doesn't naturally fit. So I think like really, you notice like we did that with Jer as well. Like, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? So, like, right now, if the issue is Michelle's following the client around the gym with a notepad, there's like random notes and scribbles. And then you have to sit at your computer and make sense of these random scribbles and put them into semblance of something coherent to send to the client. I think that is definitely a problem to solve, but it's not going to be solved by, and now there's an AI assistant recording the whole thing, because the only thing you're going to have now is a 60-minute transcript, out of which 57 minutes is probably useless to you anyway. And it's really just like little tidbits that you wanted to record. Now, if you were to shift how you take notes to voice notes. Now voice notes can all come with a transcript. And as soon as you have an auto transcript of your voice note, you can summarize them, you can incorporate them into the email, right? So like I use Voxer with my clients, which is like a voice note app. It works very similar to WhatsApp, right? Like you can send text, you can send voice. But when I send a voice note to you, Michelle, you can actually listen to it, or you can just see it in text.
And you called it Voxer with a V?
Voxer with the V. And Slack does that as well. Jared, you and I are in Slack, obviously, for PN. You might have seen it. I don't know if you've ever exchanged voice notes with coworkers, but if you get a voice note, you get a little audio file, and then you get a preview of text right below, which gives you the whole thing in text automatically. Right? And
You're
that's
Yeah.
not
saying
really
You've only ever gotten a voice note from me if I'm too exasperated to type out the issue that I'm dealing with right now.
well, now we might just have to experiment just so you can see what the text preview looks like.
Okay, so
Deal.
Voxer would give you some kind of transcript that you're talking about, and possibly if that's there's a lot there, and I'd like to get some takeaways or a summary, I could then take that transcript and leverage AI, some of the tools we're talking about, if I wanted to.
Well, again, like I just think like what is the problem here? Because if you are meeting with a client and you want to make sure that they have a record of the little suggestions that you've given them, I think you could just send them a voice note live.
Yeah, sometimes I meet with
Session.
clients and we go through their diet goals, their nutrition goals, things like that. It's not every session. Sometimes I flip back and forth because, just coming to the gym and working out I'm instructing them. That's not all there is to it. There's more, the deep health idea, right? So we talk about nutrition as well. And sometimes having a transcript of what all we've talked about in the 30 to 45 minutes, perhaps, and being able to take out those takeaways you talked about, the summaries, the big ideas. Maybe because again, I'm talking an in-person scenario, maybe Voxer or something like it is the way to go, and then have some kind of AI assistance in summarizing.
Yeah, I think logistically you will probably want to create a cleaner separation between personal training session and nutrition coaching. And that probably would be a good business practice to do, period. But then you notice that way I can come in, you can take me through my workout for the first 30 or 45 minutes. And then for the last 20 minutes, we go into your office, we sit down, you hit record, and then we have a coaching session about nutrition, after which you then have a transcript, summary, and all the beautiful AI things.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm having to navigate a new gym with their protocols on how trainers operate. So I'm trying to work within their lines and also be able to infuse nutrition coaching. So I'm still feeling it out. But these are good ideas. So
No,
thank you.
absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. This was amazing. It's that time of day. So you have your homework. Introduce yourself in Ideogram. Somebody, please. Tag me. Good luck. Have fun. And I hope I will see you next week.